Religion goes back to that thought of I have to do A to get B. It's that linear state of mind. It's that performance-oriented culture. But what you do is not who you are. Who you are overflows in what you do.
Did they catch me on my way up? Watch me, not slowing down and I'm not saying sorry.
Hey guys, I'm Kylie Jean and we are back, and I'm so excited to talk about something that I actually throw around often, but I wanted to break down a little bit more with you. And I have producer Kels, aka one of my best friends and a producer, on the show with me today, because I just really want to break down what are distraction tactics. And a lot of things that I go around talking about have to do with the spirit realm and the soul realm and how we see that kind of play out in our normal everyday life. And those are kind of big things to throw around, but out of the gate, I just want to encourage you that it is how you've naturally been hardwired to actually navigate things here on earth. And it's just as easy as it is for us to breathe, make decisions, to move forward every day, that's actually the nature in which we get to learn how to navigate this. So I just wanted to share a little bit from my own life, my own journey. And I have Kels here, who is a big part of my life, to kind of throw in some thoughts and some great discussions. But yeah, thanks for being here, Kels.
I am so honored to be here.
What a time.
What a time.
I get to go around and I talk a lot about distraction tactics, especially here right now in this political airspace that we're in. So it doesn't matter whether you like politics or not. It's just a huge part. If you live in the United States of America, it is a atmosphere that you are feeling, and you can feel that the nation is on a tilt. Things have swung from one side to the other of the pendulum, and so whether you're choosing to actively follow politics or maybe you're trying to ignore it, it still affects the airspace of your normal everyday life, right? Because we were created to feel things. I think a lot of times too, people look at politics and it feels big and overwhelming.
Yes.
They don't know how you actually are created to participate in it because you carry authority inside of you. I remember the first time I had the revelation of, politics is a man-made game. It's a system that's been put in place where government is a God-ordained realm of leadership. So they're two very different things. So you actually can feel politics at play in many different settings. It doesn't just have to be in the governmental realm.
Right.
We experience it in church often.
Majorly.
You can experience it in your workplace, even in family structures. Yeah. So if you look at it kind of that way and realize, there's a difference between something that has been an authentic realm of authority that comes from the very heart of the Lord, and then where man comes in and they've created a system around something that was originally designed by the Lord. It all of a sudden kind of disbands something that can be very overwhelming to look at, and rightfully so. And it's unlocking the identity and who you are and what you carry. So when you kind of come to that revelation of, oh, wow, I carry so much authority. It's my natural birthright. When I become a son of the living God, I carry something different that's inside of me. And I get to participate with something so much bigger than myself because of who I am and what I carry. And then there's obviously a lot of different elements that come into play just when you're naturally a citizen of the land and you carry a different authority here in the United States when you're born in the United States. There's things like that. But I think if you step back and realize, I can look at it from that place. There's a God-ordained realm of leadership, and there's a system that man has put in place. Now I can look at that from a higher perspective, and I don't have to get caught up in what I call the distraction tactics. So I talk about this often. I do a lot of public speaking. A lot of you have seen me on Flashpoint or different live events. And for me, when I say distraction tactics, it's a very easy way if we were to look at, I'm a hand talker, but if we were to look at this world that we're living in, right? So if this is like an atmosphere layer, and then under it is the world and the natural world in which we operate, there's things that are at play that come from the spirit realm. And in the spirit realm, we can plug into righteousness, which comes from the authority of Jesus Christ, which he has all authority. Jesus has all authority in the spirit realm. He has all authority in the natural realm. You also have realms of darkness. Realms of darkness come from the adversary, the enemy. You get to choose what you want to come into alignment with, but we experience those very real effects here on the earth. So when we're experiencing those effects, it can kind of manifest in our lives in different ways. And I call those distraction tactics. So there's a lot of contributors to these distraction tactics. The media, right? So we're constantly infiltrated by noise and verbal clutter and narratives. Again, both sides of the aisle, and it could even be separate from politics. It could be just thoughts or things that are strategically brought our way. That's a distraction tactic. That's something that's trying to rob you of your energy. That's something that's trying to clip onto you. Like Song of Solomon talks about spots. You're all fair, my love. There's no spot on you. There's things in this day and era that are trying to attach itself to us that we actually don't have to. We get to be above that. We get to be above those distractions. When other people's are caught into the swirl of things that are happening even in our normal life, we realize, well, we are able to be activated in an authority to look from a different perspective. Western society, we're educated to be very linear in our thinking, but the kingdom of heaven is multidimensional. So once you realize, oh, I have an opportunity to step back and approach something with a very different perspective, all of a sudden it takes away the anxiety. All of a sudden you don't get sucked into something that you feel like is bigger than yourself or confusing or robbing you of your energy or even things that you can't quite put your finger on. You realize you have the authority to be activated and to speak into that. And the overflow of your life then speaks into others around you.
I love what you just said about one of my favorites is his yoke is easy and his burden is light. Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes into the overflow of who we are. I've been able to have a front row seat to you over the last few years where I can see so easily where seasons of your life have been marked by just the overflow of who you are. Mm-hmm. That when crazy doors open, it's usually not because of anything that you've toiled or like you put your hand to because you've honored the call of God on your life. But it's when you operate out of who you are. I think it's another one we could probably break down. It's just knowing who God made you to be and being so resolute in that.
Yeah.
That you don't have to go outside yourself in order to like add on. They're not like expansion packs for your life. It's just who God made you to be is enough.
Right. There's such a huge difference between what we do and who we are.
Ooh.
Huge difference. And it's very, very easy. We live in a performance-based society, and being performance-oriented people is super convenient, sometimes for ourselves, but it's very convenient for those that are around us because stuff gets done. And there's a necessity in life where things do have to get done. But the posture of our identity, of who we are, how we approach things can be full of freedom. And there's a lot of times that when we are kind of more in that area of performance, I'm going to do A to get B, which yes, that's true in elements of life, but it doesn't have to be from the place of striving. It doesn't have to be from the place of approval. It's realizing who I am and what I carry, and kind of what Kelsey was saying. That's when all of a sudden it activates things to take place that will make sense to nobody else around you. But it's because you've lived out of a place of surrender, and you've lived out of a place where you can let it all go, give it to the Lord, and steward well what is in front of you. Live in radical obedience. Be okay with not even being liked sometimes, and being okay with being really misunderstood.
Yeah, can I encourage you? That's usually the harder choice to make. When you come to a fork in the road and you have two choices to make, and it's like, oh, do I want to do what God wants me to do, or do I want to do what's easier or what's more fun, or what I think is going to get me further in life? This is going to get me to point B, which will get me to point C. And I think that's where it's really hard. It takes grit.
Yeah.
It takes a resolve to know who you are. And I just want to say, sometimes that's hard to do.
Super hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's really lonely.
Not like, trust God, it's easy.
No,
it's actually a lot harder.
Yeah, because it's an internal positioning.
Right.
And we're in a society where compromise is everywhere. It's in order to build in your career, most people have to make decisions that are very climbing the ladder decisions. And it can be really easy, especially if you've invested in your education or growing your life, or you feel like you've strived so hard to get to a certain spot. It can be really easy to try to make a decision that the rest of everybody else is doing.
Right.
And it can be lonely and frustrating, and you could feel forgotten sometimes when you're like, well, I know that I was supposed to take Matthew 7:14, the road is narrow, few will find it.
That one hurts.
That is my favorite verse, and it is the most frustrating verse at the same time, because every single one, it's like the never-ending decision.
Yeah.
You constantly, it's what Kelsey was saying with the fork in the road. You constantly are coming to moments in your life where you have to realize, like, oh, I want so much more what the Lord has for me than what I even want for myself. And the things that I want for myself are very real, very valid heart's desires, and they're good. They're not even bad. And it's not that it's that road is narrow, few will find it. It's not that that eliminates things out of like a sacrifice or a ha-ha. It's saying no to a greater yes, which is something we talk about all the time, is that we hit these points where we have to say no to a greater yes. And sometimes that's even saying no to something that seems really good. But the outcome that comes from that, the fruit that comes from that, is so much greater than you could have ever even designed for yourself. I know in episode 1, I gave a really brief overview of my life, but if I were to take time to break down every single one of those bullet points, those stories, there's so much that unfolded that people probably wouldn't believe. Like, only the people who know me best know like the authentic reality of my life, because the world doesn't need to know everything. However, on the outside, people can see the large fruit. All people see is, oh, wow, that's somebody who's had super successful opportunities in a relatively short amount of time, but they don't know the behind the scenes decisions that had to be made, the work ethic that had to be put in. They aren't there with the tears and the pain that comes with it, or the greatest joys and celebrations. And I think that that's the beauty of living the life of the narrow road. It is the most adventurous road. And it comes with those moments where we just constantly are having to learn to lean into trust, where especially right now in this time frame, life can feel so abstract. Life can feel so blind sometimes. And it's learning to lean in those moments, because I don't know about you, I'm a super high vision person. I love vision. With vision, people prosper. And my dad always said that to us growing up, because like there's a scripture verse, without, a lack of vision, your people perish. But with vision, you prosper. Vision is something that brings you forward in life. It makes it a lot easier to make decisions in the moment sometimes. And when you learn to really lean in to what the Lord is speaking over you and trying to be as connected with your purpose and growing in identity, and that vision is such an incredible tool to lead you forward along the way. But we hit these pockets in life where it's like, I can't see it. I can't see the way forward. Like, I literally don't know what life looks like after Monday. And I'm speaking from very real reality. And it's like, okay, that can get really scary. That can feel so vulnerable. But it's in those moments that it kind of goes back to the book of Matthew with the storm. All Jesus asked was for Peter to step out in the storm and to look into his eyes. And sometimes the vision has to be as scaled back as to, Lord, I'm inviting you into my process for today. What do you have for me today? What does it look like if I look into your eyes today? How do I lead my family? How do I be able to speak into my children's lives? How am I able to operate in wisdom in my workplace when everybody else seems like they're pulling the rug from under me? I know that you have a better place of wisdom and authority. You are the ultimate creator, which means creativity gets the opportunity to pour out of me. What does that look like, Lord? So life is it's a journey. We never have all the answers. It's the process of learning to be tethered to his heart, learning to hear his voice.
Well, just to tie everything that we just talked about is the concept of pruning.
Yeah.
The biblical concept. I think sometimes, and something that I think you do really well with this podcast, is you break down spiritual principles or Christianese things or things that you hear people toss around, and no one really unpacks them in a way that's relevant to today and what that looks like. And so people say like, oh, pruning, and you don't think, oh, pruning sometimes looks like cutting off half of a tree and its fruit. And now instead of 10 lemons, you have 3 with hope and a vision that maybe one day that lemon tree is going to grow 3 times the size.
Right.
That's what faith in God looks like.
Yeah. I remember, that makes me think of a story, but when I was really little, we lived right next to an apple orchard. And this apple orchard was beautiful. And there was one year that actually Mrs. McIntosh, she didn't, that's what's her name.
Mrs. McIntosh had an apple orchard?
She had an apple orchard. But there was one year, because my mom, I was really little, my mom would, we would walk around the neighborhood, and we all, like, it was beautiful, Central Coast of California. And my mom would get so excited when she would see these apple trees, because the apples were massive. And there was just, who knows why, but this one year, the trees were not pruned. And shockingly, the trees actually produced way more fruit than the years that they were pruned. And my mom's like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't even go with kind of like the law of agriculture. I don't know much about that, but let's just say. Anyways, so I remember there was so many apples that she made it kind of open to the community that if you want to come get apples, bring your baskets, bring your barrels, take as many as you want. Wow. The tree, like the limbs were so heavy that they were hanging down. Wow. There was so many apples on the ground, like I'll never forget. And my mom loved experiences with us when we were little, so she made it so fun. We were this build up to go pick the apples. So we show up and we're there to pick up the apples. We bring them home and my mom was so excited and they were beautiful apples. My mom was so excited to bite into this apple. Like I remember her talking about it. And so we go in there and we all get our apples and we're ready and we bite into them. And it's just like flavorless water poured out.
Bummer.
It had no nutrition.
Wow.
It was big and beautiful to the outside, but the inside, the texture was bland.
Wow.
There literally was no flavor. And I remember my mom being so shocked. And I remember her commenting on that. She's like, whoa. And that moment later in life taught me so much about this concept of pruning. Wow. Is that sometimes it feels painful. It's not beautiful to the outside life or to things that are happening, where things have to get scaled back or we make those decisions of the narrow road and we have to take off the layers that can't make it through because it's that narrow, and allowing the Lord to show us, okay, what have I been carrying that's been okay up until this point of my life, but to go to that next area, some things might have to shift. Some things that have been present might actually need to go. And then he's going to fill it with the right things to move us forward, because we have opportunities where it might look like we always have decisions, right? So what if I go another direction and I'm okay with not pruning my life this year? On the outside, it might actually look like a ton of accolades come into play. It might look like a lot of accomplishments are done, but there is no nutrition. There's no flavor to your life when you don't allow the process of pruning, of that road is narrow, making that decision. And that always stuck with me. It never left. You can always identify the fruit of our life, which can be like character traits. You can look at the fruit and you know the root. You know it has been in process for a while, and you do kind of a temperature check. And that's a really great way of even assessing when you're going into new circumstances, you're going into a new job. You can do a fruit check is what I call it. And you can kind of tell like, okay, well, what's at play? Is there high levels of control? Well, there's high levels of control. There's usually fear, control, and shame that are attached. That kind of gives you a temperature check. If there's a lot of humility in a place, if there's encouragement, then that usually has really great character backing it. So you can kind of utilize these things that are on the inside where you carry something different. You carry discernment, you carry authority, you carry an opportunity to naturally live in the way that the Bible calls us to live in our normal everyday life, where it's just who you are. It doesn't have to be weird. It doesn't have to be throwing around these Christian terms. It's unlocking the overflow of what's on the inside of you.
Don't even let those Christian terms distract you.
Those are distraction tactics. Yeah. They're like, ugh.
It's religious.
They're so, that's
another one.
That's another one.
Yeah.
We'll break down. Yeah. Not a fan of religion. I hope that at the end of the day, it can just encourage you that it's these daily decisions that we get the opportunity to make, where the Lord is so kind. And we'll touch on this in another time. Religion goes back to that thought of I have to do A to get B. It's that linear state of mind. It's that performance-oriented culture that is so prevalent around us. It's very easy to get sucked into. But what you do is not who you are. Who you are overflows in what you do. And so we get the opportunity to make that decision. We get the opportunity to be in process with Jesus and the Holy Spirit, to choose that narrow road and say, Lord, even when I don't understand it, anything that's present in my life, even if it's been good up to this point, if it's not to go forward with me, you have full permission, full surrender to remove it and fill it with what's to be there. Show me then how to move forward. Show me how to navigate, even when it doesn't make sense in my own mind, and it might not make sense to those around me. Don't worry about your reputation, because the Lord is your reputation. And when you make that internal decision to choose walking forward with him, he's never going to lead you wrong. And there's grace to cover the areas where we might have flopped things. But there's also confidence that comes when you know that you are a son or a daughter of the living King, and you're mobilizing and moving forward with what he's put inside of you.
They catch me on my way up, watch me. Not slowing down and I'm not saying sorry. Keep on